Hello everyone, and welcome to another One Punch Man SSR review video. So I'm sure all of you guys are excited and happy that we get a free Boros from the login event, and you're also probably wondering how and whether you should build Boros or not. Well, in today's video, I'll be answering all of those questions for you. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, let's start off with the pros and cons of Boros. Starting off with the pros, he's a very versatile unit. He can be built as a damage dealer, a tank, or a mix of both, in which he can take a little bit of damage while still being able to deal a fair amount of damage back. His most common build is obviously damage dealer, mostly used for PvE bossing. He will be relevant in both PvE and PvP, although he's mostly used in PvE bossing, like I mentioned previously. And he is by far the strongest single target damage nuke in the game, at least for a good while. And he can turn everything into a pancake, as you can reference to this picture right here that I've clipped. It's a picture of Boros hitting a Carnage Kabuto, and he's turned him into a pancake, just from the amount of sheer damage he has done to him. Moving on, he counters meta tanks and quote-unquote soft counters CK Carnage Kabuto. And the reason why I say this is because when talents are unlocked, Carnage gets a specific talent on his talent tree number 3 that gives him a 50% chance to unyield. So basically he can't get killed in one hit. It's very similar to, well, it's basically the same as Moomin Rider's passive or Super Alloy Darkshine's passive. So if Boros hits CK that has talent 3 and that CK somehow survives with the unyielding, you've basically one-shotted your entire team, just from Boros dealing so much damage to CK while CK reflecting a majority of it back to your entire team. That is why I put in brackets soft counter CK, because in reality, it's sort of a 50-50. Although before talents are released, Boros definitely does counter CK. He also has extremely long viability, so you'll basically see Boros being used from now all the way until Gero era, and that's basically 2 meta spans worth of being viable. And that's pretty long for any SSR or any unit in general in this game. So he survives now all the way from Zombie Man. Although he does drop a bit in Zombie Man, you can still use him. He won't be as viable. And then he makes a comeback in the Gero meta. Okay, let's talk about the cons now. He requires fairly high investment and specific gears in order to perform well. He's also quite reliant on Primal Set. If you give your Boros just attack gear with no Primal Set, you'll definitely notice the damage difference between a non-Primal and a Primal Set Boros. Alright, next, it's difficult for free-to-play and low spenders to limit break. This is mainly because he doesn't have a banner, and even if he did have a banner, you can't pull him from the regular banners. So for free-to-play and low spenders, you basically are forced to use Omni Shards or put him into extreme training. And last, he requires 3 Espers in the lineup to reach max damage. This is mostly due to his ultimate, which I will talk about in the next upcoming slides. And this also makes it difficult for him to be slot into the Zombie Man meta, which requires 3 grapplers and 1 duelist, so you would only have enough room for 2 Espers on your team. Okay, let's go over his skills. His basic attack deals 120% of his attack to a single target and gives him Berserk for 1 round, damage increased by 30%. You're almost never going to use this ability unless you're out of energy, obviously. Nothing too much to talk about, his basic attack. Alright, on to the more interesting ability, his ultimate. He attacks a single target with 3 consecutive strikes for 210% of his attack damage. Every Esper ally will increase Boros' attack to increase skill damage by 105%, stacks up to 3 times. By the way, Boros counts as one of these Esper's allies, so technically you only need him and 2 other Espers in your lineup in order to reach the maximum damage for his ultimate. Okay, next let's take a look at his Ultra Ultimate. You'll need his Keepsake in order to unlock this. Attacks a single target with 3 consecutive strikes for 264% of his attack. Every Esper ally will increase Boros' attack to increase skill damage by 158%. Stacks up to 3 times. So, let me do some math for you right now. For his Ultra Ult, just the flat amount of attack percent gained is 54% more base attack, just from the base attack damage increase. Now, if we take a look at the Esper boost, for every Esper, he gets 158% skill damage increase. That's 53% more than his normal ult. If you stack that up to 3 times, that is 159% more skill damage. That is absolutely insane. This pushes Boros' single target nuke damage through the roof. And this is exactly why it is so important that Boros needs his keepsake in order to reach his maximum damage potential. Alright, next we'll take a look at his passive. When allies restore HP, Boros is healed for 50% of this value. It can be triggered up to 6 times per round. This synergizes well with Dr. Genius Core, Zombie Man Core, and Gero Core. Reason being is Zombie Man Core and Gero Core both heal you just passively, and Dr. Genius Core, every time you heal, you get 1 energy, so that also synergizes well with his passive. Therefore, healers like Mosquito Girl, King, Smile Man, and even just units with a suit set, because after they take an action, they'll heal. Boros will also heal once they take their action, so those also synergize really well with his passive. Okay, and then for his extreme passive, this requires him to be limit broken to 5-star. His heal increases to 70%, and it can be triggered up to 8 times per round. It's definitely a huge boost, but it's not technically necessary, especially for free-to-play, since limit breaking him will be very difficult. Next, we're going to talk about his build. His gears are going to be a primal set with attack crit, attack percent, attack crit damage, and attack speed. This is his most standard set and most preferred, especially for PvE bossing. If you plan on using him for PvP, you can slot out a couple of these attack pieces for HP instead, so he survives a little bit longer. There have been people that have even built tank Boros. They give him a primal set with full HP gear, and they put him on a damage reflect team of some sort with a healer like Mosquito Girl, King, or Melzagard if they happen to have that character. And they basically just heal Boros over and over due to his passive, and he is just able to outlast his opponents that way. But although I don't recommend that build specifically for most people, since his main purpose is for bossing, and I'm not sure if you guys want to invest in a bunch of HP and primal gear and just to make a PvP Boros. Alright, let's talk about talent sigils next. For the damage sigils, you want Sharp Sword and Piercing. Sharp Sword will give you attack and a little bit of HP at the higher levels. Piercing is important, especially for bossing, because sometimes the boss can actually block your attacks. So what Piercing sigils do is they reduce the block chance of the opponent, as well as at later levels they give ultimate damage bonus, so your Boros' ult will do even more damage than it already does. And then for support sigils, we have Vitality and Chaos. Vitality will give you HP and attack at the later levels, and Chaos is mostly used for PvP. It'll give you ultimate damage reduction, as well as block rate at the later levels. But if you're using your Boros mostly for PvE bossing, I'd probably just slot more Vitality support sigils on him instead. Alright, moving on. Okay, so now that we know that Boros' ult scales with more Espers on his team, let's talk about some of Boros' Esper buddies. The first one we'll talk about is King, the recent LSSR that's been released. He provides Shatter from his basic attack, healing from his basic attack and his ultimate, and overall I believe he is the best PvE bossing partner, at least out of the Espers, for a killing club boss or just any bossing PvE event in general. Next, we have Melzagard. He has healing on his ultimate, damage redirect on his passive. He is the tankiest Esper that has been released so far, so he can serve as a tank really well. And he is by far the best PvP partner for Boros if you plan on using Boros for PvP. He can keep your Boros alive while soaking in damage and healing Boros at the same time. That being said, good luck pulling for him. And good luck building him, because it literally took me 2 years to pull Melzagard on the Southeast Asia server. And some of the whales that I've played with there haven't even gotten Melzagard to this day. Next, we have Mosquito Girl, the more reasonable option. She provides healing from both her basic and ultimate. Well, it's from her passive, but you get the idea. You don't need to use her ult to heal. You can use your auto attack as well. And she's very easy to obtain and build because she's an SR, and you should have gotten a free Mosquito Girl from one of the earlier events. And even if you didn't, you can probably eventually fuse her through shards because she's one of the first boss challenges that you can farm every day. Which is why I'm currently building a Mosquito Girl, trying to get her to 5-star. Once she gets to 5-star, I'll probably slot her into my PvP lineup and see how that goes. Alright, more Esper buddies for Boros. Next we have a duo of Espers. We have both Vaccine Man and Kombu and or Gory Boss. Although, that being said, you can use Gory Boss by himself with Boros because Gory Boss provides a attack buff whenever there's a Kuroda unit. However, yeah, good luck getting Gory Boss as well, unless you're willing to spend the gems. So, Corrode or the DOT PvP lineup actually fits really well with Boros, especially on monster side, since you're less likely to get one-shotted by OTK or one-turn kill lineups. In monster side, there aren't. Actually, I can't really think of any one-turn kill lineups in monster side, so that's why the Corrode strategy lineup is so strong. And then you also have Boros on top of that, who can provide single target nuke damage. This pair or duo is also really great for Institute of Genetics. There are a lot of stages where Corrode will actually help you push to the later stages of Institute. If you don't have a Corrode lineup or you don't have Boros, you'll probably get stuck just from the lack of sheer damage that you need in order to kill some of the stages, especially the later stages of Institute. Next, we have a fan favorite, Tatsumaki. She has strong AoE damage, and this is actually really good for Boros since he lacks AoE damage. He's pretty much all single target unless you give him a Primo suit, but even then, you need some sort of AoE to pair along with him. And if you already have a well-built Tatsumaki, you can just put her with Boros and they will work pretty well together. And last, we have Sky King. He's a good budget filler Esper, and his passive can actually boost the Primo damage set if you have one on Boros. There is one downside of using Sky King, however. You might actually need to invest some resources into him now, because in order for Boros' bonus damage to work on his ultimate, the Espers on his lineup or his team need to be alive. So basically, you can no longer do the level 1 Sky King meme that I've been doing. I have a level 5 or level 1 unevolved Sky King on my PvP lineup, since you don't need Sky King to be alive in order for his passive to work. However, for Boros, you do need him to be alive for his ult to have the maximum amount of damage potential. Alright, and here comes the biggest question that everyone will probably ask me in the comments below. So should I invest in my Boros or should I invest in my mask? Let's start off with Boros. He is very difficult to limit break past 4-star as I mentioned before, because you cannot pull him on the normal banner and he requires Omni Shards and a slot in extreme training. He needs his keepsake in order to reach his peak damage potential. Without it, Amai can do very similar amounts of damage. He's also difficult to slot into lineups because of the 3 Esper requirement. This will be quite an issue once Zombie Man comes out and you want to use his core, because if you put 3 Espers then you don't get the Zombie Man core effect. But if you only put 2 Espers in, then Boros won't reach his max damage potential from his ultimate. Therefore, because of these reasons, I'd recommend whales or heavy spenders. You can max invest in your Boros since you'll be able to afford his keepsake. Everyone else, as of right now, please just moderately invest in the Boros. I'm not saying you should ignore him completely, because he does need some resources in order to even do anything, but just don't go overboard. You shouldn't be dumping everything into Boros as of right now. Okay, next we'll talk about Amai Mask. He's very easy to limit break and build, because he's an SR, you can use SR Omni Shards, and he also has an unlockable boss stage later on. I don't know what level, I haven't unlocked it yet, but you'll be able to farm his shards later on. His keepsake was free from that past login event. If you missed Amai's keepsake, I really don't know what to say, sucks to be you. Then you might be able to reconsider on building Boros instead if you don't have Amai's keepsake, because Amai actually, his keepsake is quite good. It gives him quite a bit of attack, and it also reduces the amount of RNG in his ultimate from 2 to 5 hits to 3 to 5 hits on his ultimate. Next, he's also easy to slot into pretty much any lineup. He doesn't have a requirement like Boros where he needs multiple of a certain type of unit, although he does pair well with Beast King. Beast King is still optional to run in the lineup, although I do recommend if you have a built Beast King, please put him in the lineup with a Amai Mask. His damage is somewhat RNG based, although if you have his keepsake, like I said before, it's less RNG, it's 3 to 5 hits. So he'll do either 300% of his attack or up to 500% depending on how many attacks he does. Compared to Boros, which is just a flat amount, Amai does have some RNG built into his kit for his damage. So as a result, I would definitely recommend free-to-play and small spenders to prioritize maxing Amai over Boros. He's much easier to limit break, much easier to build, and everyone should have his keepsake. Therefore, his damage output overall will be more than Boros when you max invest into him. Alright, so to summarize everything up, Boros is a good unit overall. He's essential for PvE bossing and other PvE events. However, he should not be your main focus, aka he should not be your main unit that you're building as of right now. Don't over-invest resources into him. I'd recommend you guys limit break him to 4-star maximum for the time being, because if you try to limit break him to 5 stars, that's going to cost you a lot of Omni Shards, and a lot of time in extreme training. And the reason why I want you guys to wait is we need to know how and when his keepsake is going to be released. This will determine what he's worth for free-to-play and low spenders. For the whales, obviously, whenever his keepsake is released or how it's released, it doesn't matter. They're just gonna get the keepsake and they'll start making pancakes out of everyone. So when they do release Boros' keepsake, hopefully it's not through the shuriken ticket system or the claw machine, both of which will either cost way too many gems or you just won't have enough shuriken tickets in time for his keepsake banner. Okay guys, well that's going to be it for this One Punch Man video. I know everyone is excited to get Boros, who is essentially an LSSR, for free, but just calm down. He is not worth over-investing into for the time being. Be patient. He will be viable for a very long time, like I said before, all the way through Gero meta, which is 2 meta spans. And other than that, I hope this guide has served you guys well and has given you guys better insight on Boros, and I'll see you guys in the next One Punch Man video. Peace!